an Italian TV interview last week, Pope Francis suggested a line in the Lord's Prayer could be better translated. It was a bit controversial. The Holy Father mentioned the phrase, "lead us not into temptation." He says that it could be worded more clearly in English as, "do not let us fall into temptation." The French Church has adopted that change, and the Pontiff says it better illustrates God isn't the one leading us into sin. Joining us now to discuss is Monsignor Charles Pope, where he's pastor at Holy Comforter St. Cyprian right here in Washington, D.C., is a prolific author. You oppose the idea of changing the translation of the Lord's Prayer, and one of the reasons that you say is because "lead us not into temptation" is most straightforward and linguistically accurate coming from the Greek.
Yeah, it's just the most straightforward translation. It's in the active sense. It's an aorist active verb, and it's best translated, "lead us not into temptation."
I have to tell you, when I first heard, I thought, no, I don't want anything to change. Please, let's not change the Our Father. Yeah. And then I thought, well, you know, there is a point there that it does, you could imagine that someone saying that God would lead us into temptation. Do you at all agree with that logic?
I don't know. The other two reasons I would say, one of them is pretty straightforward. I think that in the English-speaking world is one of the only prayers we have in common with the Protestants. And I think it would be an ecumenical setback. So there's just pastoral. That's more of a pastoral, not a theological issue. But even theologically, I think what we want to say is that there's an important truth that's being preserved when we say, "lead us not into temptation," and that is that God is the first cause, the primary cause of everything that happens. God leads me in the sense that He goes before me, holding me in existence and holding all existence in existence. He's the first cause of everything, and we in scientific and rational ages, we only focus on secondary causes. We need to remember God ultimately holds all creation together, and that's what that word "lead," I think, says to us.
Well, Monsignor, your very careful, cohesive explanation is, of course, not what the secular media has been talking about. There are a couple of headlines I'd like to read to you. Pope Francis suggests rewording the Lord's Prayer. Pope Francis calls for the Lord's Prayer to be changed. Right. Isn't it true that often Catholic news is oversimplified?
Yeah. Yeah, he's not calling for it. He's kind of taking sides, I think, on an issue. He prefers the translation that the French have adopted, obviously, and I don't. It's just a matter of difference of an opinion. But he's not directing us to do this. Of course, this would be up to the American bishops and others to stay in union with him. So he's not directing it, and he certainly can't change the actual text, which is in the Greek, the Greek New Testament. It's just a question of how do you best translate it so that people best understand it. There are pastoral issues, but there's also theological issues, and all of those I think have to be balanced. But to be fair, he's not calling for it. He's sort of taking sides on an issue.
Thank you so much, Monsignor Charles Pope, pastor at Holy Comforter St. Cyprian right here in Washington, D.C.
Good to see you. Thank you.